Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon Podcast, episode 25 with Jason Doyle, former professional deer stalker from Ireland. Anyway, before we get into the body of this podcast, let's just have a bit of a catch up. It's early January. Finally, the snow has just lifted with us. It's been about 4 days of crazy weather up here. I think we're just about to get hit by another storm. I think most of the country is about to get that storm. So battening down the hatches, thought we'd get this podcast recorded and released so that you've got something to listen to should the power go out. So let's have a think where we are in the season. Well, the pheasant season is drawing to a close. I think there's one more weekend really of shooting available on that. We've got the hind season will be closing mid-February. Roe does are still in, but the roebucks are all showing promise. They've all got good heads with velvet on them at the minute. So hopefully the roebuck season it'll be on us before we know it really. If that's the end of the pheasant season, that'll be the start of the pheasant egg season. So the hatcheries will all be gearing up, ready for the next year. It seems to fly around even faster and faster. Anyway, let's talk about the main podcast. Jason Doyle. It's been a bit of a time trying to get a hold of him. He's a busy man, but we finally managed to catch a moment just after Christmas, or actually New Year. Managed to pin him down while he was at home back in Ireland, and we managed to get this podcast recorded. Hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon Podcast. Today we are joined by Jason Doyle, a professional hunter from Ireland. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on. And I think to call me a professional hunter now is a bit generous. I haven't been a professional hunter for a few years, but I still do quite a bit.
I was going to say your social media side of things, you're still out and about doing lots of stuff. And I think the last time I saw you on a like a field sports show and all the rest of it, you were out being interviewed by, was it Peter Jones? You went roe stalking with him.
Yeah, that's right. I did a film with Peter on roe back in July or August.
Fantastic.
I've stayed in touch with Peter over the years, and he was always keen to do something with me. So it was good to catch up with him and spend a couple of days with him.
So let's wind it back to obviously your beginnings. How did you? Islands have always been an interesting topic for shooters and things like that. How did you get involved in it? Because obviously deer stalking over there was an interesting thing.
Yeah, 'cause I'm from a shotgun shooting background. My mum's actually English, and some of her family shoot, and they introduced me to game shooting over there when I was a kid. My dad wasn't into shooting at all, but he was into fox hunting.
Okay.
He was a professional horse dealer and show jumper. So sort of through some of his mates who had shared interests, I got into the shotgun side of things here in Ireland. And then I have a really good mate who was big into deer stalking, and he was always trying to convince me to go with him. And I just sort of felt I don't want to crawl around a mountain for a day to shoot something the size of a horse with a rifle. It didn't appeal to me. And then I went with him once when I was probably 22, 23, and yeah, he had some really good mountain ground, and I was just sort of blown away by it. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed is the wrong word, but I've just been very, very keen on open hill stalking. It's just really sort of got the bug for it at that age.
I think there's something about actually stalking an island. I think we've spoken before. Most of my stalking started coming over to County Wicklow and chasing sika deer around the hill. And yeah, that's it. If you can stalk a sika, you can pretty much stalk anything.
Yeah, we're very lucky here to have sika on open hill, and I'm very lucky to have access to some good ground through friends of mine, because it's on a scale of, like, compared to Scotland, what we have in Wicklow is tiny. I mean, there's probably estates in Scotland with more hill ground than we have sika on in Wicklow. So it's a small group of people who have access to it, which is unfortunate in a way. But I'm lucky to have friends with some really good ground, and I have access to it.
Because deer stalking's always been one of those. Like your season's very short over there, and I think there's plans to change it, but it is an incredibly short deer season, isn't it?
Yeah, our stags start in September and run through to end of December. Hinds start 1st of November and run through to 28th of February.
I think that's
But
one that gets people, is that you actually have that crossover point where you've actually got stags and hinds in at the same time.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, out of season licenses have been so readily available. It's. I mean, there's a lot of people shoot all year round now. When I started 20 years ago, it was very difficult to get an out of season license
Yes.
for culling, but the numbers have spread that much now that it's very easy to get an out of season license.
I was going to say, because everything you over there, for anybody that doesn't know, obviously you have to apply for a hunting license, like a permit, isn't it?
Yeah, we have to, every year you have to apply for a hunting license, which covers you for that year for the season. Well, it covers you through to the start of the next season. And then if you want to shoot deer out of season, you have to apply for what's called a Section 42 to the National Parks and Wildlife. And it's specific to a location or a farm or an area. And originally the wildlife rangers would come out and assess the deer damage before they'd issue it.
Oh, okay.
But with the increase in deer damage or reported deer damage, it's now much easier to get one of those licenses.
I was going to say, my friend still, well, he's forestry owner, and his numbers just ever seem to be increasing. How many deer he takes off this bit of land, and I just find it strange with everybody shooting, and obviously the number of professional guides that have sprung up. It's amazing that the numbers are still going up.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. I remember having conversations with guys I work with 10 years ago when we saw a massive increase in the number of guys coming into stalking recreationally, and big increases on prices of forestry leases and stuff like this. I remember thinking, God, we've seen the best of the stalking because there's so many people coming into it.
Yeah.
The pressure is just going to become too much. But the Sika are such a resilient animal. And I mean, they've just ridden out the storm. I think there's a lot of things that have contributed to that. Planting forestry by farmers has been a huge one because they've just created so much more habitat.
Yes.
And I think the Sika's ability to adapt is unlike any other deer we have in Ireland or the UK, and they just adapt so well.
They just it just seems to be such a great environment over there for them. And then, but I think there's problems. You've got the hybridization going on with the reds up in the military area, up in the Wicklow range, isn't there?
Well, I don't believe there's any pure red deer in Wicklow anymore. We just have Sika and we have hybrids.
Right.
And there's a lot of hybrids in certain areas. There's still a hell of a lot of areas where they haven't hybridized. But on a lot of the hill ground, you've got a big number of hybrids, which, I mean, as a looking at it from a hunting point of view, it doesn't really make much difference to me. A deer is a deer, and the hybrids are something a little bit different. They prefer slightly higher ground, so they give a bit of a different experience. But I suppose from the purist point of view and looking at it long term, it's going to eventually completely damage the Sika herd.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that'll be the next thing, is it's going to start having the negative effect actually on the pure Sika herd at that point if this hybridization carries on.
Yeah, absolutely it will. But as somebody that just enjoys going out to hunt, you just want to have some deer on the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the original, obviously, with talking about hunting guides and professional hunters, I think the first real professional hunter over there was John Fenton, and I think you used to work for him.
Yeah, well, I don't I'm not an employee of his. We're very good friends and have been for probably 10 or 15 years now. What I do with John is I help him out, and when I'm home and I can stalk his areas, then whenever I want.
Because I think he's got some of possibly the best areas, I would say, for seeker out there, hasn't he? Really?
Well, that would be my opinion, but you read a lot of websites of these other outfitters that pop up, and they've all got 30,000 acres of hill ground in Wicklow. So if you added it all up, there's a lot of hill ground in Wicklow. But
I was
no,
going to say that there's a lot of hill ground that seems to be shared in Wicklow, as far as I remember.
Yeah, that's a bit of an issue as well, but that's probably that's one for over a pint, not on a podcast.
I was going to say, but yeah, no, I think that seemed to have always been the case. It was very easy. We found as an English group coming over there, because of my work, I managed to negotiate as 3,000 acres pretty much over a couple of pints and a couple of cups of tea. But yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. It was just land borders and who's got what just seemed to be always changing.
Yeah, you see, like we have very few hunting traditions in Ireland, but one of our main hunting traditions is poaching, and I don't know if I think we can probably blame the British for that, because we were forced into it or something. I don't get into the politics of it, but it's a very socially accepted pastime is to be a deer poacher in Ireland. And like when I say a poacher, I don't mean somebody who's driving the roads with a lamp, but somebody who, the big issue I see is you have lots of small hill farms that run up to open hill. And if you go and knock on that small hill farmer's door and say, can I shoot the deer? He's going to say yes, because one deer does a measurable amount of damage to his 50, 60 acres. So there might be 6 or 10 guys have permission on his land. You very rarely see a deer on it, but you see these nice groups of deer half a mile out on the hill. And sooner or later, some of these guys end up out there. And it's, when you speak to the farmers, they're sort of saying, well, sure, look, it's only a few old deer. But there's outfitters or groups of people, syndicates, paying really big money for that land, and try and manage it as well as they can, and have their own sport. And it's sort of not really seen as theft what these guys are doing when they just go up there to shoot 1 or 2 deer. But I mean, if you've got 5 or 6 guys doing it once a week, it's more than 1 or 2 deer.
Yeah, it soon adds up, because that was the other bit I was going to touch on. For a while, there was a huge problem, I think, with basically guys going out shooting deer and just getting to the game dealer just to make money. And then obviously the legislation all changed about what you had to produce basically to sell your deer. I know that's when we first started there. It was a big problem up near like places like the Sally Gap and stuff like that.
Yeah, deer stalking is one of the few country sports that you can make money from. I mean, nobody gets into driven pheasant shooting because they want to make a few quid. It's a very expensive pastime. But there's people who can really make a decent profit out of deer if they get the numbers. And it then attracts I wouldn't say the wrong sort of people, but it probably attracts people who possibly struggle to afford to justify the amount of stalking they do. So they end up in a situation where they feel they have to shoot a certain amount of deer to get a certain amount of money back, so they can justify the pickup truck and the blaster rifle and all the rest, which is absolutely fine. I have zero issue with people selling their deer or making money from venison. Like, I have zero issue with it. But when that becomes an obsession to a point where they're prepared to break the law, then there's an issue.
Yeah, I think all the new legislation that came into place certainly did curb that massively, which was quite nice to see.
It did for a certain amount of time, but over a period of 5 or 6 years, everybody got the qualifications they needed to get, or got to know somebody who had the qualifications that they needed to get their deer to the game dealer. I mean, what seems to have curbed it a bit now is the price of venison has gone down. But on the other hand, then you have complaints from landowners and deer management groups that the numbers are increasing so rapidly, and that they're on about doing sort of contract calls and stuff now. But
Well,
it's
I
all
heard,
right.
yeah, because there was also talk about changing your season as well, extending it, making it longer,
Yeah.
and that obviously will have a difference to how things happen. Um, what's your feelings on that?
I mean, to be quite honest, I don't know enough about the details of these proposals to really give an educated comment. For me, I try and stay out of the politics. I'm not interested in the politics of it. There's enough people who are more interested in the politics of hunting than actually hunting. I just want to get out and hunt.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic. Well,
yeah,
we'll leave the politics behind then, and we've got the history of the deer there. So your shooting is wide and varied because obviously, yeah, you do a lot of still shotgun sports and stuff like that, but you obviously enjoy taking the rifle out. Is there anywhere in particular in the world that you've enjoyed hunting?
um, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation with an English friend of mine who was over a couple of weeks ago. It was his first trip here, and I spent probably 10 or 15 years traveling everywhere I could, trying to find, like, before I had access to hill ground in Ireland, I used to travel to Scotland over to Oban um,
Right.
for a week or two on hinds every year, because as I said earlier, it's very difficult to get access to hill ground here. And I loved it, and it really sort of taught me how to hunt open hill. But then I've been to Austria, to the Chamois there. New Zealand is probably one of the more exceptional places I've been. But having been away from Ireland and the hunting here for 3 years when we lived in England, I've come home this year and did a month on stags, and I've just done a month on hinds. And you're just going, this is probably the best, if not one of the best hunting experiences in the world. Why do I keep trying to find something better?
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of those things. I've missed it. I haven't been back over to Ireland for about 4 years, and the memories, just the days. It's like being in Scotland, but everything's just wetter.
Well, I always describe Wicklow as a condensed version of Scotland, because you've got smaller mountains, but you've got a more varied habitat over a shorter range.
Yes.
So you can get the same experience you'd have in a week in Scotland, you can do in 2 days in Wicklow.
Yep. Yeah. No,
And
I agree.
if you're in good areas, you can shoot. I mean, especially when you get into January and February when hinds are moving strong, like it's not unusual to shoot sort of 3 or 4 in a day, and they're manageable enough that you can extract them quite quickly from the hill on your own or with one other guy. You're not relying on teams of people to get the animals in off the hill.
Yeah, no, I've done that myself. I remember trying to squeeze a hind into a row sack and walking it back for about 4 miles, and I'll never do it again, but I did it. So yeah,
But you wouldn't even be able to contemplate it with a red deer.
no, no, not at all.
Yeah.
You might get away with a calf, but yeah, even that's still about the same size as a seeker hind at the end of the day.
No, we're very
So
lucky here, and we're very lucky that there's no restrictions on like the numbers you can shoot or issuing tags or anything like that. You speak to American hunters and they can't believe that we can shoot dozens of deer a year, no issue.
yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think the UK and Ireland, we're quite spoilt really with the ability just to go out and be able to shoot, whereas the Americans have got their tag lottery, and if you want to go out and get your trophy buck and all the rest of it, if you don't draw it, you just hope it's going to be there next year, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you obviously said you do a lot with the shotgun. Is that just sort of out on the clays? Is that out with driven pheasant shoots or anything in particular?
Um, I I love driven pheasant shooting. Absolutely love it. Love pigeon shooting. Any sort of crop protection here, I love it. Clays, I enjoy them, but I do it more as just something to do in the summer.
Right.
I I'd love to have the time and interest to dedicate to clays properly and try and get as good as I think I could be, you know what I mean? Which would probably never happen. But I enjoy clays. Enjoy it for the crack, because it's a good way to meet up with people over the summer and have a bit of
Yeah.
crack.
But you get some
Um,
absolutely fantastic pigeon days over there as well
oh
on
yeah,
the
we've
crops.
we've had some good pigeon shooting here, and yeah, pheasant shooting, love it. Been big into that for a number of years. Really
So
enjoy that. But it's
Was that mainly in Ireland, or is that when you've been living in England, the pheasant shooting?
Most of my pheasant shooting is done in England, just through family and friends there.
Okay.
Do a little bit here, but yeah, a lot of it's in England, just with, as I say, with groups of family and friends. For me, the whole thing of pheasant shooting is the people you're doing it with.
Yeah.
And
It's not normally about the bag. It's about the day, isn't it?
it's about the day. Except there are some places when it's about the experience of that actual shoot.
Yeah.
But my favorite shoots to go to are little family shoots down in Hampshire, where I've been going since I'm 10, 12 years age with my uncle. And you know all the guns, most of the beaters know you, and it's the quality of the birds is absolutely irrelevant. It's a great day out, bit of crack, a few
It's
beers
having a
afterwards.
laugh, poaching somebody
Oh,
else's bird down the line or
yeah,
something like that. That's what it's all
yeah.
about. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I mean, they're the best days for me. There's a couple of little shoots down there that my family shoot on, and yeah, it's just I absolutely love going there.
Fantastic. Because I was having a look back. You've also been involved in some sort of long range rifle shooting and stuff like that over the years.
Yeah, I did that. It was when I was doing Field Sports Ireland. There's a good friend of mine who did a lot of filming with me. He's into gallery rifle shooting, all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
He's had some world titles in gallery and pistol, and he wanted to try this PRS. It wasn't really something that interested me. I've done a lot of long range stuff with the rifle, but purely practicing for hunting.
Yep. Yeah.
But when he suggested this, and we spoke to some brands about it, they were keen for us to do it. So I did enjoy it. It was good, and I actually met some really, really good guys at the competitions, which surprised me because I thought everyone I met was going to be not the most desirable
I was going to
from my
say,
opinion.
yeah. Possibly not the type of people that you're used to having out on the hill, taking stalking
Yeah,
and stuff like that with a passion for what they're doing. They're more going to be a bit sort of telling you all about ballistics and stuff and like, is
yeah,
this going to do my head in kind of thing?
yeah. But no, met some really good guys actually, especially some of the Americans who we shot with it was the Guardian long range competition we did, and it was actually a really great couple of days. Really enjoyed it. It's not something I'd really dedicate a lot of time to anymore. I just don't have time to do everything, and that's an expensive pastime that doesn't really serve any purpose to me. It doesn't put meat on the table. So
I was going to say
um,
it's not like you need to shoot seeker at 1,000 meters, is it?
no, closer the better. Closer the better.
So that actually you kind of touched on it there. You were quite involved with Field Sports Ireland. How did that come about?
Well, what happened? It goes right back to um, I did an article. The Sporting Rifle used to do an auction
Yep.
every year for Save the Rhino, and my mum bought me a row stock in Yorkshire with John Robson for I think my 28th birthday or something. And I went over and I hadn't a clue who Pete Carr was or anything like that, but I did this roebuck stock with John Robson, and Pete had asked him that if I got one to ask me would I do an article on it for Sporting Rifle, which I did. And I just got sort of back and forward with Pete Carr then, and he came here to shoot Sika. And then he sort of saw the opportunities here for filming. So he talked me into getting my own camera, getting one of my mates out with me and doing some films for the shooting show, which I did for a couple of years. And then what happened? Yeah, there was a bit of back and forth when the company that owned that was sold, and I was looking for a new opportunity to do something different. So I tried to buy what is the shooting show from, I think it was Blaze or Future or someone at the time, and they wouldn't sell it. But basically, I wanted to do more of that kind of thing and turn it more into a more regular thing, and to improve the quality of the productions I was making. So they wouldn't sell it. And it was actually my wife said to me, it was just a couple of weeks before the British shooting show. She says, go and speak to David Wright and Charlie at the Field Sports Channel, who I knew well through sort of Paul Childerley, who's a great mate. And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I went and spoke to them and said, I've got some ability with a camera. I've got some ability in front of the camera. is there any chance I can do some shows for you? So they had a chat, came back the next day, and they were like, yeah, we'll do you like a franchise deal where you'll have Field Sports Ireland. We'll look after all the production. You do the filming, supply the content. We'll help you get brands on board, and we'll charge you X amount for editing and production. We'll charge you X amount for using our channel, which I needed for their viewers, because to start a channel from scratch would have taken 10 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, it was brilliant. I did it for 2 years, and would have continued doing it other than the sort of home situation changed with moving to England, because my wife's from England, so we had 3 years living there and working there. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's one of those things. It's like probably once a week still get messages on Instagram and Facebook and stuff about certain videos and when you're going to do them again, and the people have enjoyed them still. And
I think that's the thing. People seem to just dig stuff up and go back to it, but especially good quality, good content shows that actually cover stuff, I think is what people really want. And that's the difficulty nowadays. I think the social media has become, how in the nicest way, it's becoming quite fake, unfortunately. And actually proper content is you have to feed through a lot of things to actually find genuine people doing genuine stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I mean, all through the films I did, I am not an expert in anything in any way, shape, or form. I'm a student of everything I do still. And all the films I made, I had one eye on. I wasn't trying to create content for people who were into hunting and stalking for 50 years and knew everything, because they're the guys that would pick holes in stuff like donor techniques. If they were entertained by it, fine. But my content was for somebody who's just watching, who's just got into deer stalking or just got into pheasant shooting or pigeon shooting. I was always just trying to teach somebody something that I've learned the hard way.
No, absolutely.
If you already knew it, then it means nothing to you. Fine, scroll on. But I mean, literally over the years, thousands and thousands of messages from people who were like, "Oh, I never thought of doing this, or I never thought of doing that," or "I've just butchered my first deer, having watched your video," or something, like little things like that. And I was by no means the only one doing it, but it was, I think, decent content. And
no, absolutely. People. I think that's the thing, though, and I get messages because of this podcast and stuff, like guys starting out listening to the podcast and saying how useful it's been, etc., etc. So it's always about, I think the biggest thing I've ever learned is every day is still a school day. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, you could still learn something new from somebody.
I've brought people out stalking who've never shot a deer before, and I've learned something from them. You see a certain way they tie their boots, or a certain way that they load their rifle, or something they do, and you kind of go, "Oh, I've never thought of that, but it makes so much sense." And what really annoys me about the hunting community is the arrogance of some people who are not willing to learn, because they think that they've done it all so many times that they can't be wrong.
That is the biggest thing. That's one of the big things that we see, even on the hill. You get the guys that come out that tell you how to do your job, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, but I think I know where the deer are, kind of thing.
Yeah, and when it comes to shot placement, and they've never made a mistake, that's the one that always.
Oh yeah. Well, I obviously I've been stalking basically in a glacial valley for most of this season, and it's virtually straight up, straight down, and you get guys out and they know their shot placement if it was horizontal, but when you try and tell them, well, we're up on a cliff and you're shooting 45 degrees down, I want you to shoot at the top of the spine. No, I'll do too much damage. It's like, no, you'll actually drop the deer. If you shoot where you think you're going to shoot, it's going to walk away.
Yeah, and then you get people, and you're on a slight gradient, like a 25-degree gradient, and they miss a deer at 150 yards, and they say, "Oh, well, it was downhill, so that'll have affected my drop." And you just go, "No, it really won't."
Yeah.
you need to be 45 degrees and more than 200 yards for that to make any difference.
We've had some interesting situations this year, obviously, with the winds and all the rest of it with us. We've had some serious bullet drift. I've only ever experienced bullet drift massively once when I was doing my HCAP over there at the range in the Midlands, and I saw a 308 drift by 6 inches. But we've been suffering like 18 inches of bullet drift on the hill this year.
It's the one thing wind and fog are the two things that you just can do nothing about. Everything else you can work with. But yeah, and it's the difficult one when you're guiding, is to help people with a wind call.
Yeah.
And like obviously the best case scenario is to get close enough that it doesn't matter. But especially this time of year when deer are spooky, you can't help it. But actually, I was guiding an English fella last week, and we were on a herd of hybrids, and it was, I think, at 220 yards. We could not get any closer. And something that I learned through making mistakes was to wait till you had an animal that was backside into the wind.
Okay.
And then what I always tell them to do is hold on the back of your kill zone. So then because sometimes you'll see it up there. You can have a 30-mile-an-hour wind where you are. You walk 50 yards, and where the deer are, it's in shelter.
Yes.
So you can end up holding far too much for wind. So what I like to do is wait till the deer has its back to the wind. Hold on. Say you're going to call a 6 or 8 inch wind drift. Hold on the back of the lungs, pretty high up. So your horizontal crosshair is showing you the maximum amount of the deer that you can hit, so into the neck. And then if there's no wind whatsoever, you're still going to kill it in the back of the lungs. If it takes it 6 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, the bullet is getting better all the time.
You think similar to me, because that's been my go-to most of the season, is put the crosshairs virtually on the back of the deer's spine. If it drops, we're all within the kill zone. If you're too low, you're not. But anything there, we know it's going down, and that's kind of what we've played on this year.
Well, I've seen it before, where if you have a deer facing into the wind and you don't call enough wind, you're into the stomach, and then you have a problem.
Yeah.
So the big one for me is to wait till the deer you want, or a suitable deer in the herd, is arse to the wind, and then the wind is going to blow it the right way for you.
It really has been an eye opener for a lot of guests this year, especially. And I think it's been considerably worse weather we've had up here on some days than they've ever experienced before. And it really has shown a lot of stalkers a big difference.
We've had, this month I've been home, we've had a due westerly a lot, which is rare for Wicklow, and it's really pushed deer about into places, and it's made a fool of me quite a few days I've been out, because places where I know there's deer, they're just not there.
Yeah, exactly. We like, normally the back of our corries, the deer will always be there, but as I say, we've had a lot of easterly and northerly winds, and of course it changes where they want to be. They don't want to be there; they want to be lower down or out of those cold spots. And you go up there thinking they're all going to be there, and there's nothing, and you have to carry on walking.
Yeah, and the brain starts to go,
how do I get somebody into this? I think the last one was, I had a French guy, and I said to him, like, the deer are right over there, but our only route is almost a 10k route round the back of the hill, and we'll drop in above them. We got him too high, so he was over the moon, but it was a hell of a trek to get into those.
Yeah, he didn't realize how many times you were questioning your own decision.
Well, that's it. When you've got the wind blowing across the top at sort of 50 miles an hour and the snow drift in your face, it's just like, we'll just keep going. Are you sure? Yeah, we'll be all right.
That's a question for you, actually. How much information do you give a client during a stalk?
It depends. Obviously, when you've got for example, a European and the language barriers there, it's mainly pictures drawn in the snow or on a rock trying to describe how far we're going, and we just walk. But if you've got somebody that an English client out, I'll generally try and keep them informed as much as possible at the end of the day. I think the client likes to know more, and they feel part of the day rather than just you walking on and not really saying a lot to them.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I try and keep them as informed as possible, and I try and tell them the truth as often as I can as well. If something I had in my head hasn't sort of worked out, I sort of say, well, that hasn't gone to plan, but we'll try this. I don't try and sort of bluff it
Yeah,
and make
I
it
think
look
that's
like it's all part of the plan.
No, I think the hardest one I had was we had a set of guests that have stalked that land for, I think he's been up there 50 years since he was a boy with his pet, with his dad. And then obviously he's been the father bringing his son up. And now he's the grandfather bringing his grandkids up. And you're just like, I can't say anything here because he knows this place probably better than I know this place. So whatever way I do it, I'll just say, we'll go over there. Yeah, that's fine.
Bit of pressure there, all right.
Oh, totally, absolutely. But actually, to the point where they're not that worried about pulling the trigger. For them, it's a day out on the hill. They're not doing the extreme stuff anymore. They just want a nice meander around, have a look. If something pops up, they'll take a shot.
Yeah, they're the best guys to hunt with because
Yeah.
you can learn from them and enjoy their company if
Yes,
they're not putting
absolutely.
pressure on you.
That's the thing. But it's sometimes we've gone from one extreme to the other. Then you've got the sort of the youngsters that are super almost bloodthirsty. They want to be out to get something, and you're kind of trying to rein them in, going, well, we'll take our time, but we'll get you on something.
Yeah, you meet all sorts.
Oh, you do. But so just right, that brings us quite nicely to a point, ammunition and things like that, because you won't have been forced to go over to non-toxic in Ireland yet.
No, it's funny actually. Today, I carried my rifle today. I was hunting with a couple of friends, and today is my first day moving properly to non-toxic.
Okay.
I tried. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago. We were shooting an out-of-season cull on one of the estates, and I tried 110 grain TTSX Sacco overloading them, and I probably shot over space of a couple of months, probably shot 40 or 50 hinds and calves.
Right.
And I found that below sort of 170, 180, they were absolutely fine, got decent kills. Anything past that, it was different story. Once the speed had scrubbed off the bullet, they just weren't knocking them over. So I hadn't used copper since then. And then this year, I've had serious issue. The last 2 years in Ireland, I've had serious issue to get ammunition, and we can't reload unless you're a member of the Midlands range and you do it there. And there's various hoops you have to jump through. So I have to use factory ammo, and I struggled to find any ammunition that I could get a good supply of that my rifle liked. And the last 2 or 3 seasons, I had a stock of Winchester ballistic silver tips, 130 grain.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're superb in it. And I'm down to my last sort of 10. And I went and bought some Sacco blade because they were basically the only thing from the local gun shop that would shoot accurately.
A lot of people have said that the Seiko blades are very good, and they seem to be pretty accurate as well.
Yeah, they're the best thing that I've ever shot in my Sacco. Other than there is the Hornady Precision Hunter 145 grain ELDX shoot well in it, but my missus, who uses my rifle more than me, says they're a bit kicky, so we couldn't use those. And I do agree they do recoil a bit, but I've just gone onto the Sacco blades, so I didn't pull the trigger today, but within the next few days I'll have my first sort of report.
So what caliber are you shooting? Is that a 270 or 308?
Yeah.
Okay,
270. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot people sometimes ask that still. No, it's just always a 270.
Well, it's one of those things. There seems to be, because that's something we can talk about as well, because obviously Ireland minimum caliber, even for taking a seeker, is actually a 2.2, isn't it?
The minimum, it's done on energies, but I think with I don't get into all this crap, but I think to get the required energy, you basically have to use a 243.
Yeah. Okay, 2.4. Because that was, so guys are obviously, when people think like a seeker they're a tough animal, and even then, I think I first came over to Ireland with the 243 and was never convinced, and ended up buying a 308 because they'll take a fair whack and still move on.
Yeah, I mean, I had John Henry from Bible Shooting Ground over here 2 weeks ago, his first trip, and he was using his 270 with Hornady 145 grain, and we had a hind and a calf. Shot the hind, and he shot the calf straight through the shoulders, 120 yards, and it made it 40, 50 yards. I mean, it was, everything was smashed to pieces inside, and he was just totally shocked that it hadn't just gone down. And he knew where he was pulling the trigger on, and he thought there was something wrong, that this thing disappeared into the tree line.
And that's always the thing. There's so much tree line over there. They just disappear,
Oh, yeah.
and normally curl up behind something, and you're on your hands and knees crawling through nothing.
Yeah. No, they're such a hardy little deer. I mean, to be quite honest, if I had a choice now and it was easy to change calibers, I'd most likely have a 30-06, because I now don't have a deer dog.
Right.
And I shot a 30-06 for a couple of years, and I did find that dropped them a little bit quicker. But yeah, our licensing laws here are so tight, it would just take me months to change caliber. So I'm just going to stick with my 270.
If it works, it works at the end of the day. So
I love it. It's the right balance. 270 30-06 for me is the right balance of recoil and knockdown power. I've had 300 Winchester Magnums. I've had 338 Lapua Magnums, 338 Win Mags, and I can't handle that sort of recoil. So
I was going to say the 270 is renowned for being a kicky rifle, but it's flat and true, and it seems to be the go-to for most Scottish hill stalkers anyway.
I mean, moderators have taken recoil sort of out of the equation to a certain extent. I do find it, especially with a well-designed stock, I find the recoil with a 270 to be a little bit more linear than even a 308. I find 308 to be a little bit jumpy in the 308 rifles that I've used.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a bit more of a start, like as I said, a more upward recoil than the 270.
I think a lot of people, that obviously weight wise, is yours a sort of a lightweight barrel, or is it a heavyweight barrel that you've got on there?
It's a Sacco Finlight 2.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lightweight barrel, but big house gun moderator on it, which completely tames it.
Yeah, so I think a lot of, because obviously mine's a 308, but it's re-barreled with a heavy fluted barrel, and I've had people on the hill this year go, "What rifle is that?" Because there's no kick from it, and that's shooting 150 grain. But I think that's the thing. I think a lot of the rifles, people don't like to carry the weight, so they want something a bit lighter, so they go for a smaller barrel. But of course, it all bounces around the place, and it gives you that little bit more kickback at the end of the day.
And I mean, stock design has such an impact on felt recoil as well. I've seen it when I've changed stocks and put like different carbon fiber stocks or different aftermarket stocks on a rifle. The impact that has on your felt recoil is extraordinary.
Oh yeah. Ah, fantastic. So just going back to your use of non-toxic, have you had any issues with obviously deer not dropping exactly and running on for a fair distance, or if your shot placement's right, everything's doing what it's supposed to be?
I haven't really done enough with it, except that 1 year, and it was with one type of non-toxic. But I did find that, to me, it was, and I remember saying to my wife, she was with me a few evenings, and I was taking like, like, you'll know what it's like when you're trying to cull numbers. You probably take some shots that you wouldn't be in a hurry to take if you were stalking for pleasure.
Yeah.
Where you'll take a quartering shot or a front on shot or something like that. And I did find the non-toxic absolutely fine on the closer range stuff. But then, as I say, when I got out past 200 yards, it felt like I was shooting with a 6.5 55.
I think that's been our biggest issue on the hill this year. We've had a lot of guests bringing their own rifles with non-toxic, and we've had a bit of I'd say a disaster, like stags needing 3 shots to put them down, and it's just like, this isn't right, this shouldn't be happening. But you put them out, you put the guy out with your rifle, and on the last day, and you go, look, I'm nothing about your rifle, but just take mine out, 1 shot, bang, it's over. You're just like, oh, that's fine. I think that's been our biggest concern. We're almost at the point of trying to go, maybe we should just say to everybody, you'll just use the estate rifle kind of thing.
Well, it's a route John Fenton has gone in the last few years, where he has a number of Tikka and Sacco 270s, and he encourages clients to use them now because he knows the rifles are working, he knows the ammunition is good, and you don't like we have a lot of European clients, and most of their shooting is either at driven hunts or from high seats. So the accuracy of their rifle might not even be great, and they mightn't even realize it if they're firing a few shots a year.
We found that, yeah, exactly as you say, European clients, we take them down to the target, 100 meters, absolutely bang on, perfect, no problems with their shot. You put them out on the hill, and obviously typical red stags and hinds, we're our shortest distance is 150, but mostly you're going to be taking a shot between sort of 180 and 250. And that's it. They just don't seem to be able to do that sort of range with their rifle. They're not used to it.
Yeah. But going back to what you're saying about the non-toxic, like I've heard so many horror stories with, I mean, you discussed one on a podcast you did recently where the bullet had completely changed direction as well. And
yeah,
I don't know what the answer is, but talking to guys who are using these shackle blades in the 270s, there's a friend of mine who's a keeper. He shoots quite a lot of Sika, and he says they're great. So that's the route I'm going to go and try it. If they work well for me, I would like, just part of me would like to use non-toxic. I don't really know why, other than I think it's the way we're going to have to go eventually. So if I can get on that bandwagon early and accept it and forget about it then and just keep using them, then great. Much the same as it is with the shotgun.
I was going to say the shotgun seems to be in the UK, the HSE have pretty much ruled that all shots going to have to change anyway. But I think they've actually had a bit of a backpedal on bullets, and they've actually said that, yeah, due to inhumane killing, we want you to stick with lead at the moment. So it's weird, isn't it?
Well, I mean, fair play to them, because if it's not killing deer as well, then it can't be. They can't force people to use it. I mean, steel shot for bird shooting and stuff, for the quality of pheasants I'm capable of shooting and that I want to shoot, steel shot is absolutely fine. And anyone that moans about it, I just think, like, just get over yourself. But
yes,
with deer, it's very different. It's like the shooter's skill. If that isn't the deciding factor, then you have to use the best ammunition possible. And if lead ammunition is the best ammunition possible, then we have to keep using it.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think you can put a lot of people on deer, for example, roe and stuff like that. You're going to be taking a sub 100 yard shot potentially. But as soon as you take them to the open hill with all the variables we've talked about, you really want the most accurate and most humane kill up there you can get. And I think lead just still has that little bit extra because it still has that big thump. And with the right rifle, even a bad shot with a lead shot knocks it over, whereas a bad shot we've seen with copper just drills a pencil hole through it and your deer travels off across the hill.
Yeah, you see, that would worry me because that negates all the advantages of your big caliber. I mean, I've always said that the 270 compared to the 243, which would be sort of two of the more historically the more popular calibers here, but the 270, just the smack it hits the deer takes half the running out of it.
Yes,
like a heart shot deer with a 243, if it does 100 yards, shoot the same deer in the heart with a 270, it'll do 50. Like, that's a vast generalization, but from my experience, it just smacks them so hard, and it just does the job.
But I suppose the world's had hundreds of years of using copper, not copper, but actually lead bullets. So a lot of these manufacturers know how they work and all the rest of it. Obviously, there's been a massive push to get non-toxic to market, and I think there's been some complete disasters. Seiko have obviously invested a lot of time into making sure that what they're using as their heads are working well. But I think out there's still a lot more learning to be done to make sure that these non-toxic rounds are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as hunters, we have to be pragmatic about it as well. And if we have to adjust how we hunt and adjust the shots that we take, then that's just what we have to do. I mean, if you can't go out and chest shoot a deer with your 6.5 at 500 yards anymore, then you can't do it. There's no point moaning about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
either get something that is capable of doing it, or just change how you hunt, change the shots you take.
I think that's the thing. It all goes back to that learning, though, doesn't it? It all goes back to you as the marksman behind the rifle need to be as accurate as you can be. And I think that's probably where the time needs to be spent to make sure that every time you go out, you take the time, the consideration to make sure that that shot you're about to take isn't rushed and it is in the right place.
Yeah, but as you know as well as I do, you cannot get it right every time.
Oh, no, no,
And
no.
I mean, I had a really experienced guy 2 days ago, and as he pulled the trigger, deer knew we were there, but this hind just did a complete 180, and his shot missed her by 2 feet.
Right.
Now, I saw it happen as the trigger went, but his brain had already pulled the trigger before she moved. And we were very lucky that it was a clear miss. But I've seen so many times over the years where, as the trigger breaks, deer takes one step and you have a stomach shot through absolutely no fault of the hunter.
No, it kind of goes back to that. If you go back to the old bow hunting methods, it's the deer jumping the string, isn't it? Really,
Yeah,
it has that moment and it drops or it does something, and that's where the bow hunters have to anticipate that. Whereas obviously we've been very lucky with the rifle, but it's there. It does happen. You've just said it.
yeah. You can't get it right every time, and that's you hear guys when you talk about calibers and stuff, and guys are like, "Oh, well, I still use a 243, and if you put it in the right place, it works." Well, yes, it does, but who can put it in the right place every time?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
if it goes in the wrong place, I want to be hitting it with something that at least has enough shock to do a decent job, rather than just a small bullet that pencils through.
Yeah, but I think the key is you hit the nail on the head there. The guy, we're out shooting a lot of deer. We know it goes wrong. There are people out there that maybe shoot a few deer, a handful of deer every year, and they've been incredibly lucky that every time they've squeezed the trigger, their deer's been hit in the right place and it falls over. So as far as they're concerned, they've never missed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was having this conversation with my wife the other day. I brought her out on the hill, and she's been lucky. She's never wounded one. Now she's probably shot a dozen deer, but she shot a hybrid calf from a group, and just it fell down in a peat hag, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw another calf disappear out to the left. And in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, we're in trouble here. The report of the shot didn't sound great, but we were in a little river. They were in a peat hag, so the echo sometimes isn't great. But my instant reaction was to take the rifle. I got up on the bank, saw the calf, and shot it, just to negate any issues. And she was really upset that she thought she'd wounded one. And we got up there, and there was two dead hybrid calves. She'd shot hers perfectly through the heart, which every shot she's taken has been perfect, unfortunately.
There's definitely something about lady shooters though. They listen and they're steady and they do take good shots.
Yeah.
And yeah, they everybody has problems, but I've always found that on the hill, if I've got guests out, a female guest out compared to a male guest, the lady listens to exactly what you say.
They're brilliant, and they find it easy. It's like you put the crosshair there where you told me, and I squeezed the trigger slowly, and
it fell over.
And you go, yeah, it is easy in theory, but yeah, I like my wife. She's been lucky that the deer has always fallen over, but I think that, and it will happen, where either a mistake is made or a deer takes a step or the wind takes a bullet. I fear for that day, because it will upset her so much. And I remember the first deer I ever lost, it upset me so much.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that goes to show that actually the passion for hunting, it's not just about the killing, it's about the whole conservation side of it. Because if you miss something, you spend hours trying to find it or look at it or work out. You take the rifle to the range, what's gone wrong? Why did this not work? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's sort of doing everything you can to fix the situation when it does happen or when you do wound one. But it's just a fact of hunting. Like, sooner or later, there's a chance that it will happen.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things, when you shoot enough, you do miss, and you do have screw ups basically.
Oh, well, the more I keep telling guys who miss with me, the more you shoot, the more you miss. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Missing does not worry me whatsoever if I can explain it. Like, if I know I've taken a bad shot, or I had a bad rest, or the deer moved, no issue. It's if it's 150 yards and everything is perfect, and then I miss. I'm like, ooh, something's not right here.
Yeah,
But
what have
missing,
I done here? Yeah.
I couldn't give a hoot about missing. I'd say I've missed hundreds of deer over the years.
But that to be able to say that is, a lot of people would feel they couldn't say that because it doesn't look the street cred's not as good. But actually, it, as I say, it's all part of the learning curve. And you take that miss and you go, what was wrong there? Oh, I was resting on a piece of heather that gave way, or my rest was wrong, or this was wrong, and you just move on from it and you learn from it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a little bit too old to be worried about street cred. Uh, I just sort of I take the piss out of myself more than anyone else does. So
But that's what it's all about. And I think if you're too serious, it takes away the fun of actually what you're out there doing and having a laugh and enjoying yourself.
I get when I'm shooting with my mates, I'm praying they miss. They're praying I miss.
That's always the
So
way. So moving on, what's the plans for 2024? Any good hunts coming up? Anything new? Are you going to any of the shows?
Haven't planned to go to any of the shows. I'm back out to work in Taiwan in a week, and I'll be home for the last sort of 10 days of the Sika season.
Right.
So that rules out the British shooting show, because I want to get as much hunting in as I can. Our season finishes end of February. Then there'll probably be some culls to be done. Sort of some of the estates we shoot on, they'll kind of look at numbers March, April time, and then maybe do some culls, maybe not. But yeah, there's usually a little bit of stuff to be done around that when the grass starts to grow and farmers start complaining.
That's it. Yeah. Usually, as soon as the grass starts getting nibbled, the cows have got nothing. Come and shoot the deer.
Exactly. But no, it's going to be quite enough year. We've done a lot of renovations on the house here in Ireland, and we've more to do. And I'm changing jobs in the new year, or should be in the summer. I've been working in Taiwan for 2 years, and I'm going on a contract in America. Should be around July or that. So that puts the second half of the year up in the air. I don't know what kind of rotas I'm going to be on, because it will depend when this job starts. So I've booked no hunts for autumn or winter of this year, which I just can't do it until I know when the next job starts.
We can see lots of photos of you on American hunts coming up, then putting in for tags and getting some time out there. Then
it's funny you say that, but with my job, when I'm in the country I'm working, and we work 12-hour shifts every day we're there. So unless I go out early or stay on late, you get no time for anything else other than work.
Right.
And when you've been away for 6 weeks, the last thing I want to do is stay on late. I just want to get home to the missus and the little one. And
I was going to say you've now got a little one as well, so it's more important to be home time to see them develop.
Exactly. I mean, if we had sort of weekends off or anything when we were working, yes, I'd definitely try and get some hunts in. But I do sort of 5.5 weeks of working every day when I'm away, so there's no time for anything else, which is absolutely fine. I feel like I don't need to chase like aspirational hunts anymore. I don't really have or I can't justify spending the money on it. And B, my aspirational hunting is in Ireland, and like I love Scotland. I still absolutely love hunting in Scotland, and haven't done so now in a couple of years, which like that upsets me, because I've just done so much in Scotland over the years, and I love the traditions in Scotland. But yeah, what we have in Ireland and the UK, I think it's impossible to beat.
To be honest though, yeah, just to be able to go stalking in Ireland is something that I think is completely magical, as we said at the beginning. So if anybody gets that opportunity, it's a game changer, really. It's something you'll never find another location to hunt that's as magical as being over there, especially when you watch a sunrise come up over the hills and stuff like that. Yeah,
it is good. And I mean, Sika in the rut here on Open Hill, I just don't think there's anything to match it.
No, not the whistling, and with that bit of fog in laying in the bottom of the valley, and then whistling across at you. It's an eerie thing.
Yeah, limited experience of the red rut in Scotland, but the Sika rut is it's something else. When it's on, when it's proper hot rut, it's just incredible. It's such a
The
special
red
experience.
rut's good, but I don't think it doesn't seem to have the same effect on the body as a stag, as a big Sika stag or two Sika stags whistling, and you're in the middle of it, and you're thinking which one's going to come running down this hillside to fight,
Yeah,
and I'm going to be there.
yeah, it is. It's a special experience for somebody who's into, like, really into their hunting. I mean, I'm not into shooting trophies myself or anything like that, but just to be there and to witness it and to see the effect it has on people who are crazy about their trophies.
Yeah.
When they see a big Sika stag smashing up some header or something, like, they just absolutely lose themselves.
But as I say, it's that look as well, especially when they turn and look at you, and it's just like, yeah, okay, it really doesn't like me. It's got a
Yeah.
face on it that's pretty evil.
Oh, no, it is good. They're a special animal.
They are.
Yeah,
No, they really are.
I just hope they don't lose the respect that they deserve. Just through the change in legislation and stuff here, I hope they don't become a pest species.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Well, we haven't even mentioned that obviously Ireland doesn't just have Sika and reds. That you've also got fallow over there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, there's been a huge increase in the numbers of fallow in certain areas as well. I mean, I've heard anecdotal stories of sort of guys shooting 200 a month in certain areas.
Wow.
But much the same as it is sort of down around Gloucestershire and places in the UK where the numbers just exploded with COVID. But yeah, we've got some big groups of fallow. There's very few fallow in Wicklow, none on the areas I shoot, but there are some in Wicklow. But yeah,
They're more over Tipperary direction and out towards the Midlands, aren't they?
Yeah, Midlands and down in, there's a lot in Waterford as well. I used to shoot some in Waterford back 20 years ago. But yeah, they wouldn't be my first choice of deer to hunt. But yeah, we do have a lot of fallow in Ireland. I think they're the most widely distributed deer in Ireland.
Yeah. No, because I think I've only ever been out with a lad that shot one, and it was massive. It was just a huge body, but not a massive head on it. But it was just the size of it. I remember trying to lug it into the back of his pickup and get it away, and it was just something to have experienced.
Yeah, they're big old lumps.
They are. They certainly are.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I think that pretty much kind of brings us to a nice rounding off point there. You've explained everything about what you do and all the rest of it. Yeah, life has changed slightly for you. You're no longer professional hunting, as you say.
Yeah, as I say, it's sort of quite a nice balance now. I get like 5 or 6 months off a year, work 5 or 6 months, and get plenty of time with family and do a bit of hunting now. We've moved back to Ireland, so yeah, can't complain, as I say.
I was going to say it sounds like a perfect lifestyle, to be honest, if it's doing that for you.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, and I have a very, very understanding wife, and she loves her stalking as well. So.
Oh well, next time you're over in Scotland, come up. We'll take you up on the row or something like that, and you can have a crack up here at a couple of roebucks or something like that.
Oh, she'd love that. She's from East Yorkshire and has roe all around her, but she's never shot one.
Well, we had a guy on the hill this year who he was absolutely desperate to shoot a roe. He lives down south, roe everywhere, comes up stalking in Scotland, but was more interested when this roe walked out than anything. It's like, I don't worry about the reds. Let's get that roe. It's like, no, you've paid for reds. We're going after reds.
Yeah, people are funny.
They are, absolutely, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, we'll round this one up there, but thank you ever so much for your time. That's been absolutely spot on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for listening to the Outdoor Given podcast. If you've got any comments or anything or any suggestions, please either drop us a message. Don't forget to leave us a review if you get a chance, either via the Apple platforms or Spotify. All the reviews help the show gain popularity. We've got some new guests recorded already. I think our next guest on is going to be Ben from Deer Central, telling us all about what Deer Central can offer, the one-stop shop type of thing. So stay tuned for that in a couple of weeks. Anyway, we'll see you soon.